From In the Beginning to the Musical Apocalypse, this is The Bible Says What. I'm your host, Mike Wiseman. Worship. The dictionary defines worship as the feeling or expression of reverence and adoration for a deity, or to treat someone or something with the reverence or adoration appropriated to a deity. My question, why worship anything at all? Why bow down to anyone or anything? What compels a person to drop to their knees and worship Yahweh? They can't see him. Most don't hear him. Without confirmation from their invisible mute deity, how does a Christian know Yahweh's receiving their exaggerated admiration? Feelings. The Christian Yahweh connection is nothing more than a feeling and a hope. Christianity is built on both, making it fragile and easily discredited. I am empathetic to those ensnared in the lies and empty promises brought by religion. I've been there. I used to think that all my successes were made possible by Yahweh. He alone was allowing me to complete projects or make it through a difficult time. There was no invisible man in the sky magically assisting me. People are stronger and more resilient than they give themselves credit for. There is no need to thank a deified child killer. Give yourself a giant pat on the back for your accomplishments because Jesus didn't even bother to show up. Let's start the show.
Is there anything in the Bible that you yourself have an issue with? Okay, so it took you reading the Bible to realize that those things were bad for you?
Yeah, it actually did. I didn't
figure this out on your own?
No, Ted Bundy could be redeemed. God doesn't kill children.
What do you think the Passover was? Yahweh sets up a whole system in the Old Testament where you slaughter animals just so he's able to forgive you.
Today's special guest is Ellis Lucas. He's the author of The Potter and the Clay and a book called Wanted. Welcome to the show, Ellis.
Well, Michael, it's an honor to be here with you and a real pleasure, and thank you for the invite and for the honor of getting to be on your show there. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. You've written a song or two. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Oh, man, yeah. Well, I've written several songs there, and let's see, 3 of them are on my website there, Michael, that on the media page at ellislucas.com, and those are just original songs that I'd written. I opened up for John Sled. He was he's a legendary, rock and roller from the 80s band, Head East, Never Been Any Reason, and a good friend of mine. But so I opened up and played those songs that night up here in Colorado, and people really didn't know I even played music, and so I hadn't played for a long time, and then they wanted to know where I could get those songs at, and so I had a good friend. He's Kelly Clarkson's drummer down in Tennessee, and we had a real pleasure of getting to go down there and record them with Luke Sullivan and Lester Steele Jr. that plays with Kelly Clarkson, and Ron Rawls, multi-Grammy award-winning keyboardist for Mandisa back in just a couple of years back. So, but they're on there for free on the media page, and people are just I just welcome you to go in there, and they're an expression of my life. I tell you, my songs.
So you
they're
perform these?
Oh yeah, we sure do. We got a really just a world-class band back here, and
so do you do the
again,
singing or just the writing?
No, I do it all.
Okay.
I mean, I write, and I'm the front man in our band. Back in 2014, I had a good friend out in Nashville, though, John Elefante, and he's the former lead singer for the band Kansas, back in the early days with Kerry Lifgren, and he's a good friend, and so he was invited him and his wife up to come and be at one of our events, and he said, well, I'd love to come up, but can I play? So I thought, well, gosh, sure. So, we had a band up here, and 4 guys from Colorado Springs are just phenomenal. And he and his brother Dino came up, and we put these guys together, and they, they covered him for concert that he did. And he was so blown away by these guys that they've been his band since 2014. I mean, they've got to go out and, and play with Alice Cooper in his studio down in Phoenix, and play with the world-class rockers, Journey, everybody. And so, yeah, we have a long history with music and, writing and all that,
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. We'll play a little bit of that at the end of the show today.
Oh, man, thank you. I'm honored there. I'm so honored. And
Definitely.
Man.
So you grew up in a Christian home. And did you grow up going to church, or was it just your parents were Christian and there was a Bible around? What was that like?
I grew up in a devout Christian home there, Michael, and that was it's where I acquired my first real drug problem was right then, because every time the doors opened, my mother would grab me by the hair of the head and drag me in every time, and so it was a hard habit to kick, But we came from a real devout family, and it was the number one. It wasn't a suggestion. It was what we did as a family. Was we're going to honor God, and that's number one. And everything else, it'll take its place. But this is.
As for me and my family, we will serve the Lord.
Oh yeah, and I wrote that in the introduction to the Potter and Clay. That would be a good good way to describe my home growing up with my mom. And
so church wasn't a choice; it was a priority or a necessity.
Church was absolutely a necessity, and I always said when I get of age there and get out on my own away from here, I will never don the doors of another church as long as I live.
So did you struggle with your faith when you were living there? Or did you just believe wholeheartedly the whole time, and you were just fighting it, or how did that work for you?
No, I mean, when I was a little kid there, growing up down in Lathrop, I loved the Lord. I mean, I feared the Lord. I just didn't like church, and I just didn't like the responsibility, the grind of going there and having to sit still or get slapped silly, and because that's how it was back then. But it wasn't.
Was the
it
pastor
wasn't a
slapping?
legalistic church. No, my mom.
Oh.
No, she will sit here. Any of you kids get out of line here. She's the most unbelievable mom on this planet. But that's the one place where, you will sit here. You will pay
no mucking
attention,
around.
Yeah. And she meant business. But looking back now, though, honestly, I can tell you that those were some of the things that I miss at this point in my life the most of all is, just that environment. And it's funny that you don't know how to, appreciate the great things that's really happening in your life when you're just a young person, a kid, and you look back, later on in life, and those were sweet times and special times together as a family, and so thankful that my family was committed to knowing the Lord and honoring Him.
So you rebelled against the church. You rebelled against going and you didn't want to go to the actual physical building. You didn't like the responsibility of it.
Well, I just didn't like being there, period. I mean, then it was boring. I wanted to go out
Right.
on the farm and chase the animals, play with pigs, and drive
Right.
tractors, and I just didn't like going. It wasn't so much rebellion. I just, it wasn't just church. I mean, Mom had to literally babysit me when I first entered into school, because man, I wasn't going to have any other part of it, But but I didn't like school either. I just wanted to hang out on the farm, drive tractors,
Right.
be with Dad, do our thing out there, and
So it wasn't
after
the
that.
religious aspects of it. There wasn't the belief that you had an issue with. It was just going.
It was just the going part. I mean, I just didn't, I just didn't like going and being there and sitting through it all. I didn't like school either, and so you could say that was a rebellion, because later on it came back to haunt me. Those plans, and those that attitude. It came back to to be a kind of a real obstacle later on in life for me.
So you did struggle with your faith at one point, though.
I did struggle with my faith. We moved from that wonderful paradise, and we moved from there to a little town up in northwest Missouri, and it, the good part of me stayed on the farm back there. It never left. It refused to leave. But man, Michael, it was such a I don't know, a traumatic, thing for me moving for some reason, and I got so depressed that I got kind of, I don't know, I just went down a different road, and then I got in a fight the very first day at school, at my new school at 9 years old, and for kid just didn't like new kids, and so, but it threw such a wrench into my life that I wound up, by 11 years old, I was, I smoked dope for the first time, and and back then it was that wasn't, that was pretty out of the ordinary for kids that young to get mixed up in that kind of stuff there. But and after that, Michael, something changed in me. The first time I got stoned back then, that I don't know what it was, but something just died inside of me. I don't know if I just disappointed myself, but the older I got, I started getting really angry. And I mean, really bad. And it turned to hard drugs and lots of drinking. And, then by my mid-20s, I was such an absolute wreck. Really just an alcoholic and really bad addict, at that time. And I feared God in the worst way. I feared eternity. I didn't so much fear God, but I always tell people that my mother didn't necessarily succeed at putting the fear of God in me, but she sure did the fear of hell and eternity and the lake of fire. And, the visual, the graphic thoughts, I mean, the things there. And I've horrified of that, but so after so many years, and, man, I mean, and I'm talking about weekends in county jails for fighting. And, after a while, I was just a bad person. I hated myself, hated everything about me. I despised myself. And I was angry about how my life had turned out. And I blamed everybody in the world. And furthermore, and then to make things worse there, I was so bad that I honestly didn't think that God even loved me at that point. And it became, it gradually began to turn into just despair.
So
and
you were
hopelessness, just total despondency.
you were upset originally because of the move. You were taken from everything
Yeah.
you knew, everything you loved, everything you'd grown up with, the farm.
hmm
So you were
Right.
taken from that, and that angered
hmm
you, and that anger stayed with you. It sounded like for quite a while.
Well, until I was 35 years old, and it was, excuse me,
Hmm.
it was, by the time I got up there in my late 20s there, Michael, I was nothing but just a culprit. There was nothing. There was nothing I could even point out that was even remotely good about me at that point, but I was just violent. I was angry. Just explosive. But
Do you
at the
think?
same time, though, Michael,
Sorry, go ahead.
at the same time, I was always angry about where did that, I'm a good person. I was a good kid. What happened? Why did this have to happen to me? And it was just victim type of mentality. But
Hmm.
I wrote a piece that, a guy asked me to write a piece for, I don't know, Washington Post, one of those big deals. They're big, newspaper deals, or something there. And it was, I titled it "The Invisible World." And I talked about in there, I talked about how, there was a time I couldn't imagine, being a best-selling author or writing songs and, playing music and enjoying life, or being the president of His Heart United, a wonderful Colorado, Missouri, nonprofit, parachurch organization, and especially knowing the history behind it, how it all began, and what has now turned out to be a beautiful life, the sweet smelling fragrance, true redemption. And, I talked about, when the Beatles came over here, you may have a listening audience that don't even know who the Beatles are, but they're not little insects. They were
Know.
probably the most, they were, they was probably bigger than Elvis. But they talked about, a revolution they sang about. We all want to change the world, and man, that was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to change the world. The world was a terrible place. And that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. But the world changed because I changed.
Changed
There
your
was
world.
a day that my world changed. There was a day back in March of 1997 when everything changed on that day there. And that was the day that suddenly I realized that all the innocent, wonderful people that I had held into contempt and scorned and hated for what had happened in my life, they were the victims, because nobody made me drink beer. Nobody made me smoke dope. Nobody sent me down. I made a conscious, single decision to do all that.
So
do you think that I realized?
Do you think at this time, during all of this, that you deserved to go to hell? That you deserved an eternal punishment because of the things you were doing?
Well, I deserved an eternal punishment, before I did all that stuff there. Michael, there's nobody worthy of, perfection. There's nobody. We've all sinned. We've all turned our backs, and shook our fist at God at some time. But even the ones that have the best people on this planet, there's, as good as they may be, they're still not worthy of, of an eternal kingdom where there's no more death, no more sorrow, no more pain, no more suffering and tears, and
So you find us not worthy, because we're sinful, and so why do you think we deserve this eternal punishment as opposed to, let's say, an eternal couch that you just do a timeout on every once in a while when you do something bad, and the length of your timeout depends on the extremeness of your sin or thing you've done. Why not that as opposed to an eternal fiery pit where,
Yeah.
we're burning alive forever?
Well, it's a complicated thing. It really is to sit here and explain it. That sin entered this world. We had, Adam and Eve, all the way back to the beginning, they had perfection given them to them. The Bible says that we sold our souls for nothing, yet we were redeemed for a price there. When I say we're not worthy, it's not that we're horrible people or anything like that. It's just that sin is, it erects a wall between us and perfection. And that's what I mean. There's only one, there's a one standard for heaven, and that's perfection. And so none of us meet that requirement. And so, I don't know if you're familiar with any of the Jewish culture. I got fascinated by studying that stuff, several years ago, and I taught it. I taught about the 7, festivals of the Jewish Messiah, Passover, unleavened bread, all that stuff, But there's one thing in there, and it was, the traditional Jewish wedding, and it's still, it's still practiced, but maybe not quite to the degree that it was, back in biblical times. But, back in the day, there would be, for a bridegroom, it would be an arranged marriage, but, if there was a certain bride out there that they wanted, he wanted to marry, or the father wanted his son to marry, then, there would be a negotiation. You would pay a price for that bride. And it was called a mohar, M-O-H-O-R. It's called the bridal price, and it's something that it was an agreed upon price that would be pre-negotiated before this wedding could ever be consummated, and it would be done years before the actual service and the consummation and what happened. And during this time of from the time when they would come together and everything would be agreed upon, the mohar would be met, then they would enter into a time of betrothal, which I'm sure you're familiar with that because you're well versed in the Bible. But that would be it would be similar to an engagement in our time, only a betrothal was more binding than even marriages here in our time, because the only way to get out of a betrothal was to be put to death, the bride.
Wow.
And
do you find that reasonable?
Well, for that to happen, she would have to be unfaithful. There would have to be some kind of infidelity.
So do you think that's worthy of death? Infidelity is worthy of death?
Well, back in that culture, that was a practice. But here's what happens, though, because, they would, once everything was agreed upon, the mohar was brought together and everything, then, the bridegroom would get to, spend the ceremonial time with his bride-to-be, and, they would share a cup of wine, and they would sip that, and he would serve that to her. And this would be the seal that kind of solidified this betrothal process. But then, the bridegroom would go away to the father's house, and he would prepare a place. He would build what they would call a canopy, and this was a home. This was a place for the bride to come and be with him, and it would. So he would be gone for a long period of time. The average was around, a couple of years or so that he wouldn't see his bride, and he would be there, and even the son himself didn't know when he was going to go get her, because the father alone would be the one that would say, "This is good enough, now go get her." But so you've got that time between the betrothal to the time where he comes back to get his bride, and during that time, that's a lot of time, and there's a lot of temptation. I don't care what age you grew up in or what culture you grew up in. The flesh desires, sin, and we all crave, we all crave it. We want to
We all have
that
that
hunger.
animal urge.
Hey, perfectly. Wow, well said. And so, but it was the bride's responsibility. Mary, the mother of Jesus, the story is that her and Joseph, they were betrothed, and but she conceived. Isaiah 9:6, a son will be given, a child will be born.
Does that count as cheating?
Well, yeah, I mean, Joseph was a good man, though. Here's the deal. It wasn't mandatory that you put them to death.
It's a thin line there.
You give her the certificate of divorce and send her away, just damaged and tarnished, like the woman as well. But, Joseph, he was a class act man. He just, he was just going to, end this relationship, basically, when, the story goes that he was visited, and, the Holy Spirit, God, one of the angels had kind of, cleared the air and explained what's happened, This is your son. His name will be Emmanuel, God with us. And, there's more to that, because, you see, sin didn't enter in through Eve. Sin entered the world through man, the Bible says. Through one man, sin entered the world, and through one man, propitiation was made to give hope to be out of this world. Now, when you get into the bigger picture here, the church is referred to as the bride of Jesus Christ.
It's such a weird thing. That's so odd.
Well, I was just saying,
odd way to refer to it.
It sure didn't get real. Yeah, sure. I got a very beautiful bride there myself, and when he gets, if I'm, I feel bad for him, because he sure got the raw end of that deal with me here. But, anyhow, and so, and Jesus at the Last Supper, he's talking to his, his 12 right there, and he says, one of you, of course, will deceive me, but he said, listen, I give you this bread. That's where the bread came into it. He was talking about his beaten and broken body, that would be offered up, a sacrifice for us all. And then he passed the cup. He said, this is my wine. And see, that's what the seal in the traditional, model for ancient Jewish weddings, and still today was, the cup that they would share represented, the price, the mohar that Jesus had to pay with his own flesh and blood for the rights, the legal rights.
Right. It's like ritualistic fake cannibalism.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. But the Bible says that we weren't purchased, by silver and gold or the futile things of our fathers before us, but we were purchased with the blood of Jesus Christ. Now
we're purchased, huh?
So that's what the Bible says.
when you said that sin
Mhm.
entered through man,
Mhm.
Yahweh Yahweh's the one that created man on purpose, knowing. You do believe he's all knowing, right?
Absolutely.
So he created man knowing that sin would enter through man, that he would have to go
Mhm.
through all of this drama in order to complete his goals, I guess. So why
Well,
have man have
here's
sin? Why create man sinful? Why create man with that sin
he
in
did
him
he didn't
or
create him
ability?
sinful. He created him perfect.
He
Um,
created man perfect?
Satan, you know, is the father of lies, the father of deception. You know, he did the same thing he's doing to everybody today. He just created doubt in her mind. Did God really say that? Well, yeah, God did. And here's the thing, Michael, is that what three things do you need if there's any kind of a purchase to take place? Because the Bible said we were purchased, you know. We were ransomed
Purchased
for a price.
with blood. It's such a weird thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you think
But
made Satan?
God made him. He was Satan, and you know, and then the story is he decided that and Satan he was the apex of God's worship. He was the number one musical worship leading angel. He was beautiful, and you see, that's why God didn't make me beautiful here. It was sad, too bad for Jesus, but bride looks like me. But that way, I don't have that problem where I'm looking in the mirror. Oh, yeah, Lord, it's hard to be humble. No, no, but here's what I was getting at: is that you have to have three things. There's got to be three things for any kind of an exchange or purchase. You got to have something of value. That's worth a purchase. Then you have to have a buyer, and then there must be a seller, right?
I guess, yeah.
To buy something, to purchase something, there's got to be a buyer and a seller, and something that in exchange or that you're buying.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't it? This is what we're going to do. We're excited that we're going to go and die and be beaten and brutally tortured to go down there to ransom Christians, the bride of Christ, the people. No, but listen, once sin had entered in and we had already surrendered humanity, under the authority of Satan, because that's what it says. We sold ourselves for nothing. We were just conned out of this. We were conned out of perfection and fell for it. You know what? Eve represents the overall state of all of us. Every one of us are vulnerable. We're all gullible. You get somebody, somebody starts putting, hey, this guy's getting, you're getting the shaft, man. Hey, it gets everybody's. We all are weak by nature. Every one of us.
Why would he make us weak by nature?
Well, we became weak at the fall of man. Whenever during the curse, yes, after the fall. And here's the thing: there had to be an agreed upon price for the bride, and it gets even more than that, Michael, because Satan knew this was a bargain that he better win. Why would anybody make any kind of a deal if it meant eternal damnation in a lake of fire? Think about it. I mean, eons and eons and eons and eons and eons and eons of centuries after centuries after centuries after centuries, not even a single second closer to the end of eternity, and not 1 second let up. Why would anybody make any kind of a deal that would even, there was even a risk in something like that happening? I'm going to suggest that I don't think he did. I thought, I thought about that for a long time. Here's Michael. He wouldn't do that. Okay? And that's the whole point of what he had asked Christ to do. If you want this bride, you've got to step down. You've got to set your deity and all of your, your stature on aside. You've got to enter this, this humanity, this cesspool I've created as a man, 100% man.
A cesspool he created.
And you've got to meet me down here in this. You got to meet me, on a level playing field.
So why the blood as payment, though? Why does he require bloodshed as payment? Hebrews 9:22, without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. Yahweh chose this specific payment. Why did he need
he didn't,
perfect blood?
Satan didn't require that. God did.
Yeah, right, Yahweh. Why did Yahweh require perfect blood as payment?
Because
why not an apology or a flower or?
Yeah, well, see, that's just it. He probably would have been good with that. He probably would have been good with that, but he didn't have the legal. He didn't have the legal authority. He didn't have. He didn't have.
Yahweh made this rule, though. He has all the legal authority, apparently.
No, we were 100%. Humanity was toast, man. We were under the authority of Satan. Every single human being at that point on was born without hope.
Why would he allow Satan to have control over people like that?
He didn't. We gave it up ourselves. That's what the Bible says. We surrendered our own.
He's sitting there watching it happen.
Yeah, he gave us the free will.
He has the power to stop it.
He gives free will to have dominion over the earth. He gave us free will to, when I got saved, Michael, on March 6th, 1997, I was sitting in a jail cell after, with a life in prison after over 2 decades of just madness, thinking there was no hope, that Jesus didn't even like me, let alone love me. There was no hope. The first thing I ever heard Jesus say, Ellis, I love you. I love you. And
I remember you telling me about this. So specifically, when you heard Jesus, what was the circumstances?
Oh,
you'd just been arrested.
It was a 5-year. For the previous 5 years, beginning with my mother, getting cancer and passing away back in 1991 at 54. That just leveled me, man. It devastated me so bad, Michael. But I was married, a beautiful wife, sweet, loving wife, but I couldn't. I mean, I was already, angry. I was already, in a horrible frame of mind anyhow from all the addictions and just feeling despondent. But when Mom passed away, my dad and me, we had a bitter relationship. And I felt like, there was nobody there. I always had Mom. I didn't have nobody. And I started drinking hard liquor. I started getting into Jim Beam whiskey. And, and it didn't take long to become a pretty serious problem. And then I got, strung out and really badly addicted to cocaine. Well, let's see, 3 years later after Mom's death, my wife there at the time, she left, and she had to. I was, incapacitated by liquor and stuff. I couldn't even, maintain a job. I couldn't help myself, let alone be a husband. And I blessed her. I wanted her to be happy, and when she left, I just told her, it's not your fault. So then that last 2 years, I went up to stay at my dad's, in a farmhouse, my dad's farm, even though despite the, the turbulent, the tumultuous relationship, and I went to stay at an old farm. farmhouse on his farm. He was a very wealthy man. He had several. This one had been abandoned, but it was the only place there was that I could go because I couldn't take care of myself. And so I'd been there for a few months, and one day I looked out, and there was this cat staring at me out in the yard. This cat looked just like my former wife's and my pet, just like. And when I'd look at that, I'd just lose my mind and go crazy because it would make me think of everything. You know, it would just bring up every regret. I missed her so bad you couldn't imagine it. I was broken so bad. I missed my mom, and I'd look at that cat, and it was like torment, you know, and stuff. And I couldn't get it to go away. I went over to my dad's house.
Time to sell the cat.
Oh, I was trying to kill her. I went over to Dad's. I got a gun.
No.
I got a gun. And I went over there, and
family.
But I couldn't hit that cat. He'd sit right there and look at me. And I love animals. I love everything. I can't hardly step on a bug without it bugging me. But I went nuts, and I shot, a cat up in the tree, and I shot another one on the run. Bam, bam, they're down. And I just couldn't hit that cat. It was just driving me crazy.
Why you tried to kill the cat?
I did. I mean, I wanted to go away. It was reminding me of my wife and everything I'd ever lost. And
oh my God! Just give it to somebody. Don't kill it. Holy cow!
It wouldn't go away. It was just a cat that came up in the yard at the farmhouse. It wouldn't leave. There was nothing I could do, and it was just there. But it would just sit there, and it would just sit there and look at me like, And I would sit there and aim, and boom, nothing. I couldn't hit that cat. But I shot two others. I said, Dad, it ain't my shooting. I just can't hit the cat. I don't know what's going on. But all this old house had was just a wood-burning furnace in the basement. And I would sit down there with a big bottle of Jim Beam whiskey, smoking dope, and whatever else I could do to try to ease the pain. And I'd poke around at that fire, and I mean, there was nobody. It was lonely. It was very, very lonely and painful. I mean, the pain was so bad, the emotional pain, that only reason I didn't commit suicide was the fear of eternal damnation. I just knew that as much pain as I'm in, I can't take this. There's no way I can deal with that for eternity. But one night there, sitting down there, just stoned out of my mind, sitting there, and this great big giant rat comes out and sits right down there in front of me and just looks at me. I'm sitting there in disbelief, thinking, what the heck is that? This thing was over a foot long, and he's just sitting down there. I'm thinking, oh my God. I went to get the gun.
Of course.
I'm going to shoot this rat. Well, Michael, I could, it's like this rat must have had some kind of some firearms training, because if I had that gun with me, you wouldn't see him. If the gun wasn't there, right there he'd come. And so I was losing my mind. I was going completely mad. So I thought, I don't know what to do, but I don't want that thing around me. So I thought, that cat out there, I will get the cat in here. At least somebody's going to die. One of them is supposed to be down there just one night. Well, anyhow, so I don't know, but that cat, so it gets in there. It was in the basement at first. I just left him in there, and that was your place there, and I fed it. But I never seen the rat again. But I'd go down there, poke around, get drunk, stoned out of it, and poke around that fire, and that cat got over there, and pretty soon, it becomes my best friend. It's my only friend. It's my only friend, you should say. But anyhow, but one night, it was after Thanksgiving there in 1996. It was the very morning after. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and that cat woke me up. It was climbing up the back. When I woke up, it was climbing up the back of that couch and jumping off and just sinking all 4 claws into me. And it was just 1 inch away from it. It was right in my face, screaming. Not like a cat, but just screams. I mean, crazy noises, and I just freaked out. But when I woke up, there was smoke over, and I could see the smoke. And I set up on the couch, and there were flames right behind me. And I got some clothes, and I got my clothes and my coat, and got out the door, and that house burned to the ground. I mean, it was an old dry farmhouse in Missouri, and it was like paper. It fell all the way to the ground, and it was nothing left but one single room. And the one room just happened to be a room where my mother had put all these things together that were priceless family things, and and that room was fine. It didn't burn. Well, just before that, my dad had given me a really nice car. Anything, it wasn't that he loved me, but I was so despondent. He just thought maybe this will, help him to get back to life and something. In 4 hours before it ever got insured, or, I was out there 4 hours after I got it. I got stoned and hit a bank head on at 70 miles an hour, flipped it out to a cornfield.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, I wake up 2 days later, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on here at the farmhouse again. And I'm really sore, and I don't even know what happened. And I opened the door up to the front door, and there's that car, just completely got a mangled up tin can sitting right there. Dad put it in my driveway there. So anyhow, but then the house burnt down. I went to stay, at a friend's house. It was a girl, and she said I could go stay with her for a little while, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But her husband, who used to work for my dad, that's how I got to know her. He got killed drinking out there in a car wreck, and then her boyfriend before me was he got shot and killed by somebody in her front yard, and they just scooped up the parts and went and dumped him off somewhere and buried him, and there was never an investigation. And she was crazy. I went over there to stay that winter, and she was so wound up on methamphetamine, and just around the clock, endless supplies, and and so I was doing all that with her, and I started losing my mind and having. Oh yeah, and lots of it, plus liquor, and but I started having these, kind of schizophrenic type of, episodes there where I was losing touch with what was real and what wasn't, and I started to really get terrified that I was going to die. I started having these terrible, terrible, things going on, premonitions. I don't know what you call them, and so I somehow managed to get a job down there driving for Mid-City Motor Freight out of St. Joe, Missouri, and I have no idea how I passed the drug screen or if I did or not, but anyhow, but they gave me the keys and I went to work. I was driving nights, and and I'd get off in the morning, and but I was so terrified of living there. She was crazy. I mean, she was just and she would stay up all night long, and she'd just make all these crazy noises. And anyhow, so I called, I called my cousin in Kansas City, and it was the only person left on this planet that I knew of that would open the door and ask if I'd come down. I really thought I only needed a couple of weeks till I got a check or two there, and I could get a trailer. I don't know, anything, but and
just to get out of there.
Of course, he said, yeah. He said, sure, but he couldn't guarantee how safe it was, and it was a major meth operation, a beautiful upscale neighborhood down there in Gladstone, Missouri, North Kansas City, and anyhow, but I thought.
Wait, your cousin had a meth lab too?
Oh, well, it was his. It wasn't mine.
Oh my goodness!
I went to stay there, and it was a huge deal. I mean, he lived in a big, beautiful home up there, and they had this going on all, people coming and going 24 hours a day, and what I didn't know was, the FBI, the DEA. I mean, they've been gathering evidence from outside the trash cans. This place had been bugged and under surveillance for 6 months, and and it was they were building up to a certain point, and it was the SWAT team came in to sort it. Well, I stayed there for 6 days. I went down there. It was the 1st of March in 1997, and I was driving at nights and getting off in the morning, and I've never met people this deranged before. I mean, there's people out there just evil. I mean, they would shoot you dead over dope, Kids, it didn't matter. I mean, these people were just deranged every day. I mean, I would start hearing a voice that, you've got to get out of here. You've got to get out. Every day, man, I'd be saying, okay, when I get off work, I'm going to get my bags. I'm getting out. Well, this went on for those days. Well, March 6, 1997, that was the morning I was going to do it. But it was one day too long. I went back and packed up my suitcase, and it's all I had, just suitcase, old car that wasn't too good shape. But, I just lay down on the bed for a second to get my thoughts, and it sounded like an explosion when they come blasting through there, and stuff. The SWAT team, all camoed out, masked, semi-automatics. I mean, they come in ready to use lethal force, and I mean, they wouldn't have hesitated. And but I gotta say, there was one thing I got a laugh out of the whole deal, because I'm sitting there. These are bad dudes, man. This is a bad deal, And it's one of those, ate up dope head in probably his 60s gets up, and he's gonna get up there and take these guys on. He got his fist out, and this one SWAT guy just puts his billy club and gun down there, and he shoots out the punches him one with his fist there, and boom, I don't want the lights on him. And I thought, like, dang,
That's
he
real.
said, I don't need no weapons. I'm just going to knock you out. And I thought, well, what kind of an idiot would do that? But and so they had guns. They had the lab, which I'd moved with my bare hands. I mean, I'd touched everything up in there. Staying for 6 days, and they had everything in the world. And I was charged with manufacturing methamphetamine with intent to distribute firearms. I mean, it was a bad deal, just like everybody else. And it was, somewhere it was 15 to life was, what I was told. And I didn't see any hope at all. I mean, there was no way out.
Right. So where did the voice of Jesus come in from? When did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I spent 20 hours in the Clay County, Missouri jail that day, and booked it and everything else. And I managed to be back here on one by myself, where everybody else was thrown into this big giant. I don't know how I wound up by myself, but I did back here. And well, I was sitting there, and I was just trying to think who I could call. Mom was gone, my wife's gone, everybody. I said, who can I call? And my sisters, they wasn't going to have anything to do with it. My dad wouldn't. I mean, this was that I thought anyhow. But I sat there for, it seemed like, it was probably hours. And boy, Michael, I mean, I couldn't. And suddenly it just dawned on me that, wait a minute, I don't have a single person on this whole planet that even likes me, let alone somebody who loves me or would want to help with this deal here. But not only am I headed to prison for the rest of my life, but I don't have anybody. I'm alone. I'm just, and it was right at that very moment. I mean, the very lowest, most loneliest, destitute, form of despondency in my whole life. You can't imagine the pain that felt like after everything else and all these other years of just horrible stuff. But you said, how could this be? What happened to that little kid from Lathrop? That's who I am. This ain't supposed to be. And that's right there at that very moment was when the Lord just said, Ellis, I love you. And, I've always loved you. And, you've been running all your life, but Ellis, I'm here for you. I've always been here for you. And Ellis, I can help. And of course, honestly, I spent the next 4.5 months, and especially right there, thinking, now I'm hearing audible voices, but they're not audible. They're in my subconscious, but they're audible, but they're in my subconscious. But so I'd already been seeing things I wasn't sure about, and So this, I was positive.
Were you on
really.
drugs at that moment?
Yes.
When you heard it? Yeah.
Man, yeah. Yeah, not only that, but not only was I on drugs, Michael, but can you imagine the frame of mind I was in after the insane intensity of the drug rate and the violence and, working all this
Right.
stressed.
Yeah.
Stress beyond.
Just a little.
I mean, you're just already
Facing
out of
life
your
in
mind
prison.
anyhow. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, it was just
And
a
then you
little
hear a
bit more
voice.
than what, I mean, this is just, so you're just going through all that, and all of a sudden you're hearing this, and you think I'm hearing things, I'm having a conversation with God. I mean, there's a lot of stress for one day, just right there. And, and on top of that, Michael, it's hopeless. And, I'm just making up voices. I'm just sitting there making up some kind of a hopeful thing that doesn't exist.
Right.
I don't know. But
something to help you get through this stressful time.
But no,
something to help you cope.
But it became very, very real. And there was a point there. Pretty soon it became, and when he really got engaged with me, all of a sudden there was no fear. I mean, it was a different deal. I mean, all of a sudden it was like I didn't have any fear or no nervousness.
Right, because you had created this coping mechanism.
Oh, this hysteria. And I was at total peace about everything whenever I was in the middle of this conversation, and he began to say that, you know what, I've always been here for you, because the reason I felt hopeless, Michael, was because for the last 20 years, my life had been, falling apart at one piece at a time. And every time another piece of my heart, another piece of my life would be ripped away from me and gone for good, everybody would say, Ellis, you got to turn back. You got to give this your life to Jesus. You can't. You're not going to live. You can't do this. And what they couldn't understand, and wasn't any real way for me to even, is that every time another bad, horrible thing would happen, I would. I'd say, Jesus, if you are, or who everybody says you are, and all this stuff, and you can do what they say you do. You do have this kind of power to help me. And
So
why don't you help me?
Did you hear a voice after? Have you heard a voice since then?
Oh my gosh! After 23 years? Oh my, yeah, sure.
Still hearing voices.
Well, I tell you, he speaks to me through his word more than anything, with the Holy Spirit, and just sort of said a lot of things, but not so much like this, like you did there now. The first 2 years, I would hear his instructions very clearly, but,
physically?
But think about it. Well, in my subconscious, people always say, oh, what's the voice sound like? Well, what's it like? And there's no way to explain it. Listen, we are limited by our own dimensions, our own finite understandings, our own minds, and and he's an infinite God,
So is it
and
like
there's no way to
a telepathy thing? Is it like just in your head randomly? It's this thought of it, or is it like a different thought coming from somewhere else? You think?
Well, let me put it this way: we come pre-programmed. We come wired up from the beginning. Let me give you an example of that, because, you and I have something in common. You probably love music. You probably like music, right?
Of course.
So, and we all love music. Almost everyone. My dad, he didn't listen much. I always thought he was the only person at home, but he was real rich. He was one of them old, try to get saved, but, let me tell you a little bit about music, because I'm a musician, songwriter and stuff. Well, listen, music there's only one, music has a theory, okay? There's pitch, there's tone, octaves, chords, progressions, there's intervals, there's all these different things. And you can't tune an instrument unless it is tuned to the right pitch, to the right notes, to the right. And it's because
I see what you mean.
Because there's a set There's a set framework, a set structure, set,
So you're
a
saying
set.
that once you tuned into Jesus, the Jesus station, you could finally hear it.
Well, no, I'm
No.
talking about music here right now. I'm talking about music itself. I mean, you can pick up a guitar and not know how to play it. And you can pick up a guitar that's not tuned, and you can beat on that thing all you want to. But somebody's liable to bash you over the head or something with it, because there's only one.
So violent.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, but music, it has to be tuned. It has to be played, in chords, and it's got to be played in certain notes. But but here's the other thing. When I say pre-programmed, music has the ability to freeze frame time in our lives. For instance, if you've ever heard a song from way back and you hadn't heard it for many, many years, you just forgot about it basically. And for instance, I was in a restaurant, one of the Black Bear restaurants, eating breakfast one time with my wife, and there's a jukebox there in these stores, in these restaurants, and that's when it dawned on me that's when I really understood the history. The freeze framing part that I'm talking about is because this song came on, and the song had a very, was branded to a very, very distinct, point in my life where, very significant things had taken place there, and the song was right there. And so it took me back to that place. And anyhow, but so it can do that. It freezes time. Hey, guys, wait. My dog's out here, and we'll close the door there. I've had enough of that. But anyhow, so it will, it has linked our minds to the past, and not only with our minds, but then, those emotions. You can remember the emotions. I could smell smells. I could smell. I remember scents. And there I was.
Yeah.
Well, then music also, when it's tuned, I mean, King Saul lost his mind out of, just paranoia, and he was jealous over David in the Bible back in First Samuel, and he would just go crazy. But David could play, his harp, and it would just conquer the demons. It would put Saul complete peace. Nero, the most wicked dictator in the history of mankind. He would run around naked. He was out of his mind. He would drive around naked in these chariots, and he would take Christians. He burned Rome down, blamed it on Christians, and then he would take them out there. He would take them out there to the Roman Colosseum, and he would make big against people would have to come to this, and and he would burn them. He would just set them on fire, and it's just a burn and run around live, and it was this kind of madness that he had. But the night he burned the city to the ground, they said that he was out there on the rooftop, fiddling on the rooftop. And that's where the term came from, that he was out there because the fiddling, mentally kept his mind from just, inevitably, I mean, the end result was eventually he did commit suicide because he was a madman. He couldn't cope with it. But music, he was very educated, trained in music. And music connects to our emotions. It has a theory. It can freeze frame time. When I say that we're pre-programmed from the beginning, that God knows, I wrote a song called Single Grain of Wheat, man. People love it. And second verse is that, somewhere deep inside of all of us is the sweet sound of heaven, written just for us individually and pre-programmed. You know.
So where does the voice come from?
It comes from God. You know, it's God saying that, Ellis, I'm here for you.
Is he speaking out loud? Is he teleporting it into your brain? Is it like how does that work?
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, you're about the 1,000,000th person that's asked me that. I would just tell you, you know, it wasn't any of that. It wasn't audible. It wasn't any of that. Because, you know, God, he created us. You know, he knit our parts together. You know, he saw our substance before we were yet unformed, and in his book were written all the days of our lives. You know, David says then, you know, I am fearfully, wonderfully, gloriously made, you know. Such knowledge is beyond me, you know. It's fearful for me to even think about it. Because, yeah, and God, he's not limited. You know, he's not limited. It says the fish, the Bible says, the seas, the fish down in the deep, everybody hears the voice of God. All of his creation, you know. You know, did you ever notice out here in the Rocky Mountains, you know, here we're surrounded by the most spectacular, you know, nature on the planet. And right up there, you know, right up high in the mountains all around, you see these creatures, every kind of thing, you know. Deer, animal, billy goats, you name it, birds, you know, all kinds of everything was up there. And you know what? They work in harmony. Too bad humanity isn't like that because, you know, we don't have to feel them. It's just a balanced place in harmony. You know, they take care of itself. And it just keeps the
it's a
whole
balance.
thing.
I wouldn't really say it's harmony. Nature's pretty violent.
Yeah, there's a lot of predators. There's predators, but it does. When I say harmony, it works. It works in a consistent manner all the time. You know, and it keeps itself. You know, from overpopulating it. It does all these different things, but you know, but the same with me.
It's a fine line.
With us.
It's a fine line.
So anyhow, it's the same here. There's no way for me to really get anybody to understand it, but it's just God saying, "Oh, you know, I have a plan for your life. You've been running all your life. You know, it never was God. Every time I cried out to him for help during that time, Michael, he would. There was never a time he wasn't right there, ready to put back the pieces of my, you know, my crumbling life. But for some reason or another, I had him shut out. Because here's why. Here's why. There's one thing that God can't do. He can speak this world into existence. He can spread out the heavens, span of his hand. He can hold the very oceans in there. He can hang the stars. He can number them out there and call them all by name. He can do everything. He can create every living thing in its own kind, reproduce the whole 9 yards. You know, in his infinite glory and endless power and knowledge. And, you know, there's one thing that he cannot do.
What's that?
For any of us. It's choose.
Choose. He can't choose?
He cannot choose. That is a personal decision that every one of us will have to come to terms with at some point in our life.
He can't choose for us.
It's either gravity or grace. It's gravity or grace, Echo.
He can personally choose to do things, but he can't choose for us. Is that what you're saying?
We have a free will. And it's smoking or non, how will you have eternity, in other words? The choice is ours. We have his open invitation to every human being from the fall of man to the last one that'll ever be born down here and during this dispensation here. We have an open invitation, you know, or we can choose to reject that offer, and by default, you know,
forever in eternity.
The consequences are predetermined. Hell wasn't created for man, and it was created for Satan. And here's why I want to get back to this for a minute with Satan, because you got to understand something. You got to understand something. In this whole mohar, this agreement thing, Satan said, you want this? You want this? You want humanity? You want these people? You want these? Okay, well, listen. It's going to cost you. I want you to come. Set your deity aside. You've got to come into this planet, into this race, as a 100% human being.
So why does he allow Satan in hell? Why does he allow Satan to have control over souls that way?
He didn't. We made a conscious decision. We were deceived. We bought in. We took the bait, man. You know, it says it. James says it. You know that. You know, every man, is tempted when he is enticed and lured away by his own desires, his own hunger. Then, once he's bought into that bait, and and it becomes sin, and if it ain't dealt with, sin, the wages of sin is death. And I'm talking about eternal separation from God, not death, but it does mean death. But I mean, the wages of sin is eternal damnation. Anyhow, so the only hope we had in this agreement, because if there was anything going to be purchased, there had to be a buyer and a seller. In the ancient Jewish wedding, it's a very vivid portrait of what happened, especially when you look at the Last Supper, serving of the wine. But, to come in, to enter into the human race as 100% man, Satan had to have believed that sin would take Jesus out, just like it did every other human being. If you're 100% man, you're going to be infected by the same terminal disease that has killed it, that sent everybody else to hell. He honestly was convinced in his own mind that was his deal. That you come in here, I want your life. Give your life.
So Satan thought he was going to get Jesus. He thought he was going to get the soul of Jesus?
He didn't care about getting the soul. He wanted to destroy Jesus because he said over there in Isaiah, I will make my throne, I will make my throne higher and above and more authority.
That's
God.
That's talking about a king, the king of Tyre.
For him to achieve that, there's one thing standing in the way, because Jesus is God.
Well, those verses are actually referring to an earthly king, the king of Tyre, and then the king of Babylon. Those verses, but
so
anyways, we are out of time here, and I did want to give you the last say though, the last word, the last whatever you call it there.
Well, okay, and first of all, man, thank you, Michael, for the incredible privilege and the honor of getting to come on here. And listen, I'd love to do it again sometime, because continue the conversation. I'd really love to do that sometime, because there's quite a bit more there that's pretty compelling. But the evidence is overwhelming. People, through archaeology and prophecies and the Word of God itself. I mean, many, many, many different things. Creation itself. There's so many different things, like music. Where'd it come from? The origins. There's many, many things. And I would just say that I'm so thankful for my own time over these last 23 years of learning and going in there and looking and digging, because I hit a season where I doubted what I even had believed ever got saved, but it was the evidence that put an end to my doubts and cleared the deal up. And I would just encourage your listeners to do that. I would just encourage them to go look at the evidence, dig in there, find it, because it's there, and there's more than enough evidence to absolutely prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it's a day of reckoning and choices. You'll have to decide. I mean, you'll be encountering this. But anyhow, and listen, you guys have the privilege of listening to an incredible host here. with Michael Wiseman. And look this guy up online, do some study on him. But he's a gentleman, and he's a very, very he's actually doing a great service for guys like me to give me a platform, to give all of us out here an opportunity to come out here and and give an account for the hope that is in us for what we believe and stuff. And he does it in such good taste out there, guys. It's support Michael, okay? Go in there and contribute, support him financially. Pray for him. But I've seen a lot of comments about his show online, and they're just as fascinating as the show itself. But that's what I mean. That's why like the Bible said what is so important to all of us, and there's not a better guy to be hosting a show like that. And so support him, keep the show going on there, and it's a great conversation, wonderful thing. I've enjoyed very much. I hope to get to do it again. And for all you guys out there, his listening audience, I just say that, hey, man, my heart goes out to everybody. Stay well, take care of yourselves right now during this robust time, and protect what we have, and stay well, take care. Don't go out and get anybody else sick either if you are affected. And I'm praying for all of you. I love all you guys very, very much. My wife and I are praying for everybody, and we will get out of this as a society, as a world, and we'll be better off on the other end of it. But we're going to be, it's going to be a little bit of a journey. So, and Michael, it's a privilege and a great honor, and I consider you, a friend of mine, because I just feel like that, you just really are such a gem, and
thank you.
You just treat us with the uttermost respect, and I appreciate you so much, and to be on the show was a real honor for me and a privilege, and thank you from the bottom of my heart, and God bless you.
Thank you for being on.
Yeah, and I'm telling God to bless you despite you, and you don't have to believe like I do. You don't have to believe anything, but God's going to bless you anyhow, because I just say, Lord, bless my friend here, because he's good. He's a good man. So.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, and we will definitely do this again.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. Okay, you too, Michael. Thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Talk to you. Bye.
Better troubled soul, near the banks of Galilee, thought about me. Yeah, thought about me. He lost his step, fell in deep, under Satan's control.
That's all the podcast there is for you today. Thanks for listening. Today's outro music is an Ellis Lucas original called God's Most Wanted. I am elated to welcome Nico Gonzalez to the BSW Facebook team. He will be assisting me with some of the posting and commenting. Nico is also the very first BSW Firebrand patron. His episodic ties will help fund both current and future projects. You too can be immortalized in BSW history. Stop by patreon.com/BSW the podcast and sign up to be a patron today. For as little as $1 an episode, patrons get access to extra content such as bloopers and unaired conversations. Or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/BSW the podcast and buy me a coffee or beer. You can also support the show by sharing, subscribing, or leaving a review. I love hearing feedback from listeners. Stop by and say hello at the Bible Says What Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram pages. You can also reach me at bswthepodcast@gmail.com. And no matter which platform you use to listen to your podcasts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next episode. Until then, would you kindly pick up your Bibles and read them?
shackled and home. Thought about me. Yeah, thought about me. Alone in a penitentiary, it did where he learned he was wanted by God. So are you. Yeah, that was too. Now the more things change, the more they stay the same. Everywhere I look, I see the same old thing. Another young soul bound up, shackled and chained. And when I see that look in her eye, I think about me. Tell him don't give up, it's all a big lie. The Lord's left the 99 behind. You're the Lord's chosen one. Don't give up, it's all a big lie. The Lord's left the 99 behind. You're the Lord's chosen one. God's most wanted. He buried me deep in a horrible pit, deep in the miry clay. Picked me up and set my feet up on a rock. He put a new song in my mouth to sing and say, go tell the world what I've done this day. And when you see another troubled